We're finally doing it. It's time for Coin Pushers 2. We did look at 3 coin pushers in a previous video, but as it turns out, you guys want more of them, so we're running it back. Here are several more coin pushers we can take a look at.
I'm sorry, I thought this delay was so you could watch Wheel of Fortune with your mother.
To kick this off, we've got the Wheel of Fortune coin pusher. Just like the Monopoly coin pusher, this one also comes to us from Ice and Crompton's. But this one is a bit older, as the manual I'm sourcing and this promotional brochure are both dated 2004. This game is available in both 1 and 2 player. The example I'll be playing on is the 2-player version. The gameplay loop of this one is pretty straightforward. You drop your tokens down this chute, but it's got this arm swaying left and right, and you want to time your drop with this swaying arm to get into one of these 7 card slots. Thankfully, you can stop this swaying arm with the skill button up here. There's a red light that's bouncing from left to right. If you get the token drop to be timed with a card slot that has this red light, you will get a letter on the Wheel of Fortune board. So the board that spells Wheel of Fortune has 14 letters. Once the red light drop timing is achieved 14 times, the game will then spin this wheel at the top, which awards what is essentially this game's jackpot. As a side note, the copy I'm playing on doesn't light up all the letters, but this is to be expected with natural wear and tear, especially with these older games where parts to maintain them become harder to find. Before we look at this jackpot, let's take a look at this drop timing. I gotta be honest with you guys, this one feels much harder than the Monopoly one. This drop chute has these jagged walls, which makes my token drops feel a bit inconsistent. The barriers between each card slot can also make it ricochet. A drop with the same chute placement can go into several different card slots. I'm not sure if middle drop is the way to go with this one, but a semi-consistent way to time it with a middle chute is to drop your token when the red light is almost about to bounce off the leftmost side. Oh, and the tokens can get jammed in the dropper here, which can sometimes help with this janky drop timing. You might get better mileage with other dropping angles, but I'd need to play around with this one more. The middle drop currently feels like the most consistent option to me, but it's not even that consistent. But once you've got all 14 of these letters, you will get a Wheel of Fortune sound cue that starts your wheel spin. Just by looking at how this wheel spins and how it stops on a dime, I can confidently say that this is not a random wheel spin. I'm assuming this is tied to a specific setting in the manual called Feature Ticket Adjustment, much like the Start feature on that other game. But unlike the Monopoly game's manual, this one clearly states it's tracking the average tickets to issue based on how many coins go into this game. A lot of the newer kiddie casino games we play are really just souped up computers inside of large arcade cabinets, but with these older games, the way the arcade owner programs the settings in is to manually adjust dip switches on the boards within the game. Here's what they look like. It's like setting a binary value using physical hardware. So to set this feature ticket adjustment, they get 3 dip switches that can add either 1, 2, or 4 to the average tickets per play tracker. Some of the other settings for this game are cumulative, but it doesn't explicitly state that for the feature ticket adjustment. It does default at 4, so we can go with that for now. Regardless of how this is set, what's important to know is that this game is tracking how many plays go into it. Based on the volume of plays it gets, the game decides how much the wheel is going to pay out. We know it recognizes a play going in, since it plays the Wheel of Fortune sound every time you drop a token. We don't know how this value is rounding. I would generally assume it rounds down if not stated otherwise. Oh, and before I forget, there are coins being pushed down here. They can set the shoved coins value to be within this range. It's got mercy tickets as well. They spell them to be merci tickets, so it's not out of pity, they're just thanking you for playing. Let's add this one to the tier list. This shouldn't surprise anyone, but it's another addition to the B tier. I may just have skill issues with the drop timing, but I swear this one feels wildly inconsistent when compared to the Monopoly one. But this game definitely has potential. If you can consistently catch this bouncing light, you can farm this one for sure. For me personally, I'm only going to try for this one if I come across it and it has like 1 or 2 letters left. It's basically a rotational payout game like these ones, but being a bit older, I think it suffers from power creep. Considering how much older this one is compared to some of the other games we talk about here, I gotta be honest, this one's ticket payouts aged much better than some of the other older games. Along with the game's payout, the viability can be compromised depending on the economy of the arcade itself. But that goes for everything on this list. If you took this Wheel of Fortune coin pusher on the stock settings and placed it into a modern kiddie casino, I don't think it would be your strongest option, but it would be a good addition to your roster of farmable ticket games.
It's Star Trek time, guys!
Alright, so for game 2 we've got the Star Trek coin pusher. I believe this one was made by Elout and released sometime in 2016. This is another one of those card pushing games, but it's adapted to use the Star Trek IP. I couldn't find a manual for this game, but we do have alternatives. In the last Coin Pushers video, I couldn't find a manual for the 7 Grandad Coin Pusher. Someone commented to reference an alternative game that closely resembles the same behavior. From watching some gameplay of the similar game in question, it's easy to tell that the 7 Grandad Coin Pusher is mostly a reskinned version of the Ticket Circus game. Maybe we can do the same thing with this Star Trek game. Looking at Elout's catalog, they sure love to make coin pushers. Surely we can find a similar one. I did find a manual that covers 2 different games. It's for Mistral and the Wizard of Oz. If you look up gameplay of either of these games, the behavior seems similar enough. So I read this manual and honestly, it's worthless for this review. It's mostly just typical settings for stuff like price, volume, and error diagnostics. As such, this will be a scuffed review that's just going off of my gut feelings on this game. The Star Trek game seems to have had several changes over the years. Older footage shows it used to have chips you could shove off that were able to be cashed in, and this older article confirms it as well. Sometimes you guys get mad at me in the comments for not covering the older versions for these games, but like, this is before my time. I can only really form an opinion on what I currently have to play here. So currently this game is just push cards, cash those cards in for tickets, loose cards are cashed in for X amount, the entire set nets you a jackpot, and allegedly the foil cards are their own set that are cashed in for an even higher value. Typically with the Taking a Look At series, I just want to focus on the games themselves and not hyperfixate on specific arcade franchise configurations. We can observe and scrutinize based on trends across multiple arcades, like how everyone seems to increase prices on coin pushers. That feels like fair game to me. But I don't want to review games based on how one arcade sets up their game. Now, when you look at the cards for this game, I think it's safe to say this is a Dave & Buster's exclusive. I'm going to have to compromise on my golden rule here, since you have a clear configuration to follow for this one. I'm not going to pretend to understand the economy of this arcade. This place is far from my first choice of min-maxing kiddie casino games, and I only go here if it's my only convenient place to take a look at a game. Moving along, this one feels really shallow to me. It's just swipe in, get upsold if you think you need more tokens, aim, shoot, and try to push the cards off. I don't think I'm even getting any residual tickets from shoving the tokens off. There is one feature you should keep an eye on, and it's this red LED wheel up above. It increments forward with every token you shoot, and once you fill the wheel, it does what looks like a wheel spin, and then awards you bonus plays on where you landed. I'm not sure if this is predetermined or if it's truly random, but I find most times that I get a 50, the next consecutive wheel spin is almost always a 5. I'm only getting plays from this wheel LED game. I don't know if this is supposed to issue tickets or anything else. So obviously the bread and butter for this game is to only play when cards are dangling off the edge, and give enough plays to reach for the bonus plays spin. Most of these card collecting games have a rare card in the set. This one will spawn less frequently than the rest. If you aren't sure which it is, let me show you. So for this one, it's Tribbles. I may just be bad at this one, but something feels off with this game. The bottlenecks at the edge are brutal. You'll push the coins below the card piles, but those cards aren't going anywhere. They're gonna crowd surf on those coins. These bottlenecks can get so congested that on 2 different occasions of collecting B-roll footage, my machine would run out of tokens to dispense, and a technician would have to come by and clear part of the tokens off the board to refill the game with more ammunition. It's now at a point where you can tell the machine is close to running out if the timing on your token shots start to get really delayed. I have a clip of this rotating center thing dispensing a card onto my board, and here it is. I'm not sure what triggers the card dispenser, but at this point, without a proper manual, I don't really care to find out. On several different occasions, I have observed the employees manually refilling the boards with cards. This also happened to me during one of my instances of running out of tokens. But I find this can honestly grief your board. You may have cards close to the edge, but now it gets weighed down by the extra cards that got added. I'm just going to outright say it, I don't like this game. I know with coin pushers you need to wait for a board with a card that's partially dangling off the ledge, but man, it was hard to find these scenarios. I've been periodically collecting footage of this one for the past half a year or so, and even on busy days nobody is playing this thing. You know it's bad when even the casuals are avoiding it. And honestly, I don't blame them. If you compare this one to, say, the SpongeBob coin pusher, I find that a card that's relatively close to the edge and in the middle may take 1 to 3 plays to secure that important card. But on this Star Trek one, I swear there's a real chance you're going to burn upwards of $50 trying to shove that similarly positioned card off the ledge. I could be suffering from some confirmation bias here, but I feel like I see far more bait cards near the edge than I ever see legitimately obtainable ones. I don't want to gatekeep anyone on how to have fun at a kiddie casino. If this game is fun to you, then hey, ignore all of this and go have fun. But for me personally, this is easily one of the most boring arcade games I have ever played. The pushing is an absolute chore with this one. Even when that wheel thing issues me 50 bonus plays, I'm not sure whether to be thankful or be upset, because now I feel obligated to play more, like a hostage. I've never played on these older versions, but I imagine all those extra chips it used to have could have been helpful in feeding you residual tickets and help push along the cards. But we don't have that version anymore. This is what we're left with. And what do I have to show for my half a year of effort? Just this measly handful of cards. I don't even want to complete this set. I'm going to stash these cards where they won't hurt me anymore. I don't come into these wanting to be negative about the games, but man, this one was rough. Alright, so tier list time. Once again, this one being an arcade exclusive is bending my golden rule on how to compare these games on the list. Dave & Buster's is not a place I frequently go to for ticket farming, but the impression I'm getting from all of my recent visits is that this game is crazy expensive to play when you compare it to several viable alternatives. I imagine that the older versions were way better, but this is the coin pusher I have the least faith in. Giving it a generous benefit of the doubt because this might be a trash copy of the game, I'm going to give it something like B-. I think this is just barely viable. I'm finding that even with patience and playing on boards with dangling cards, it doesn't feel as consistent as a lot of these other card coin pushers. The only card pusher comparison video I have right now is the SpongeBob one, and while Star Trek is nice enough to let you aim, I much prefer SpongeBob's Oonga Boonga flood the board route. On top of that, SpongeBob pays you some residual tickets as you shove tokens. I cannot in good faith put these games on the same tier. Outside of video examples, I have played Wonka and Avengers. While I haven't played them enough to cover them in a video, I can say that even in those ones, the dangling card drops felt effortless when compared to this Star Trek one. Something to remember for any of these card collecting games, the viability can change depending on how common the rare card is. Shoutouts to the guy who left this comment on the previous Coin Pushers video. It really helps illustrate the fact that the arcade decides how much of each card type is going into these games. I might be playing with a really bad example of this game, so if you like this one, please share your thoughts on this one in the comments. Am I just playing on a decrepit copy of this game, or is this similar to what you guys have? If I'm horribly wrong on this one, I'm willing to move the placement. Let's put a question mark beside it for now. I'll admit if I'm wrong, but right now if I'm just going off of the few copies of this game I was able to get to, I don't think this one is consistent or affordable enough to go any higher on my list.
sh**! It's Spider-Man! You need some help with this game?
To finish this off, we've got the Spider-Man coin pusher from Andamiro. I believe this one came out back in 2023. So this is a pretty elaborate looking coin pusher. You've got coin pushing down here, this LED map there, a ball wheel up here, and another wheel there. It seems confusing, but the promotional brochure summarizes the gameplay loop pretty well. Step 1 wants you to turn on all 3 of these lamps to drop a small ball. How do you do this? You gotta use your Spidey web shot to get your tokens to land into each of these 3 holes. Depending on your arcade configuration, they can adjust how these web shots behave. Specifically with the amount of tokens, they can change it to shoot 1 to 3 per shot, but the default is set to 3. The machine I'm playing on has the coin shot set to triple burst. When you get a token into one of these holes, it awards you some tickets. These can be set by the arcade into different payout configurations, but you can expect to see values within these ranges. It's also got this ramp in front of the holes to catch any ricochet tokens, which can help you sneak in some extra tickets and lamp lighting. I'm finding you want to shoot just a little before or after the Spider-Man hand lines up with the hole you are targeting. The timing may be different depending on your machine's configuration. It's a bit of a gut feeling you need for this timing, but you for sure don't want to shoot when it's perfectly aligned with the holes. Thankfully, this one I'm playing on has the triple burst, so the shot timing feels more forgiving. This provides more coins to shove the board, and you can pick up a few extra tickets if multiple coins from one shot land in the same hole. I'm finding that sometimes different token shots aren't shot at the exact same time. I'm not sure if that's intentional or just the hardware of the game has quirks that stutter the reloads on these shots. There is a setting in the manual that claims to adjust the shooter speed. It claims that higher speed settings will result in longer firing distances. Different configurations with this setting could affect your shot timing as well. Since step 1 ends with a small ball drop, step 2 starts with us shoving a small ball off. Whenever you shove one off, it traverses you 1 move forward on this LED map. Before you even play, you can see where the progression was left off on this game by watching this LED animation where the lights flicker up until a certain point. From there, you can tell how many small balls you gotta drop before you complete the map. While the map does show that each progression will drop either a small or big ball, the manual claims this map can also be set to give some tickets. These tickets are only issued on the small ball spaces here. This helps with incentivizing you to try and complete the map. More importantly, it helps to flood the board with more garbage. More on that later. So the end of the map shows us what step 3 advertises, which is rapid auto shot time. This is your reward for completing the map. It barrages the board with tokens. You get all the tickets that would be awarded through conventional means during this. These would include any tickets from shoving the tokens off the ledge, tokens that land in the lamplights, and the tickets from map traversal during auto shot time. The manual claims this can be set between 10 to 30 seconds, with the machine I'm playing on aligning with the default of 15 seconds. Auto shot time will reset the board, but any additional small ball shoves during it will continue on the new map's traversal. Since this really helps with shoving stuff on the board, this feeds perfectly into step 4, which wants us to shove big red balls to get what they call the big ball game. This one reminds me a lot of the Pearl Fishery wheel, but now it's flipped to be a vertical spin where the other one was horizontal. But unlike Pearl Fishery, this one only has one ball spinning at a time, so if you got multiple big red ball shoves, it will queue your plays back to back. Now, much like the other parts of this game, the manual shows different configurations where the holes can have different ticket payouts. So there are 5 unique holes to work with here. Regardless of which configuration the arcade decides to value these at, these holes will retain some of the same behavior regardless of payout settings. 2 of these holes are just flat ticket payouts. Another 2 of them will earn tickets, but also grant 1 point of spider sense, which is important to step 5. The last hole gives us a super spin, also feeding into step 5. Before we move on to step 5, I want to say that I'm really not sure about the timing of dropping your ball for this wheel. I'm sure there is a timing for when to drop, but I find that sometimes your ball immediately goes into the first hole, or it lasts what feels like minutes before picking a hole to land in. I don't know guys, if you have a semi-consistent timing, let me know in the comments. Whenever I see games shaped like wheels, I generally just assume it's a game of chance and don't entertain it much further. By either acquiring 5 spider senses or 1 super spin on the big ball game, we move on to step 5, where the game summons this weird looking wheel. Now according to the manual, it has 8 different sides that these can be set to pay out in different ways, but one of these is the super bonus, which is advertised at the top of the game. The manual also claims the super bonus can be incremented, but my example here is hard set to 1000. I gotta be honest with you, like the previous wheel game, I'm not fully sure how this wheel behaves either. My original impression of this game was it's some sort of rotational payout. You know, X amount of dollars go into the game, once X reaches Y value, give someone the jackpot and then reset X to 0. The way this wheel spins and how it stops, it feels very scripted to me. I don't know, I can't put my finger on it, especially because the wheel is behind this pane of glass. But there's just something that feels very artificial about this spin, the same way the Wheel of Fortune one feels fishy as well. But after reading the manual, there's one setting that makes me question this. It's called Super Bonus Winning Timing. You can increment this between 3 to 10, where each value is 0.01 of a second. This would insinuate that this super spin is a timing game that you gotta stop this spin at the correct time, and this setting is potentially how forgiving the window is for an input being a valid jackpot. I'm just speculating here, I could very well be wrong. I'm assuming you gotta press it when this triangular spider thing lines up with the super bonus space. If anyone has a consistent timing to this, let me know in the comments as I'll continue to try for it after uploading this video. It could very well be a rotational payout game, or a timing to stop it, or maybe both, who knows. But yeah, that's the Spider-Man coin pusher. To be honest with you guys, I really like this one. I'm not big on coin pushers in general, but this game, it's doing something right. Ignoring tickets for just a second here, the gameplay loop is legitimately fun. Like the token shot timing, the map traversal, all these crazy wheel minigames. On their own, these all feel pretty shallow, but as a complete package, this game has a lot going for it. Also, I really like the sound direction with this one, especially this patronizing soundbite when you lose the super spin game. But going back to the tickets, this game feels like it's got huge potential. Even with a poor performance on the wheels, it can still have a respectable yield when you consider the rest of the tickets you made in the game. You just need to look for a few tells on when to play. See how close the board is to rapid auto shot time, how many spider senses it has, the volume of balls close to the edge. If it's got enough of all of these, why not throw a play at it? Like many coin pushers, this game does try to upsell you, which generally feels like a bait to me, but on strong looking boards, it could be worth it to give in to the upselling. But generally, I just check the boards and I'll throw a play if it's really close to auto shot time, as this will generally guarantee some wheel spins. The spider senses are important too, because those can help you play with probability to get into the super spin game. Even with all the random aspects of having wheels and being a pusher, I find that you can easily walk away with a good amount of tickets off of one play, if the circumstances are right. Talking about tier placement, without any hesitation, this is easily my favorite coin pusher, so far. I'll let this one overtake SpongeBob in the lower A placement. I'll need to play around with this one more. If the super spin is a truly skill-based timing that can be replicated consistently, this one can very well go higher on the list. Even if you ignore the super spin jackpot, this game has no reason to feel this strong. Generally, I'm dismissive of the tickets from the smaller aspects of these games, but the rapid auto shot time can really help you rack up a respectable amount of tickets from all the shoving, and then you add on even more from these wheel spins. I wouldn't call it perfect. I still find the price to play will suffer from inflation because most arcades tend to inflate the prices on coin pushers. Additionally, I think this jackpot up here doesn't do it any favors on the cost to play either. They can justify a higher price to play because of this highly valued but difficult to obtain jackpot. That's the only negative thing I have for this game. I really like this one and hope to see it at more arcades. This article claims it was initially operating exclusively at Dave & Buster's, but I hope to see other operators adopt this one. I have seen Andamiro coin pushers at other arcades, so only time will tell. Oh, and for some fun bloopers, this game did error out on one occasion. This error code mystified me during that playthrough, but now with the manual, we know that the error code meant checker sensor signal still present. Could be a jam token or something wrong with the sensor, you know. I'm not a technician, I don't know. So that concludes this look at several more coin pushers. If you haven't watched the previous coin pusher video, consider checking it out. Before I started making these videos about redemption arcade games, I always thought these coin pushers were complete money traps. I never gave them an honest chance and I made sure to avoid playing them. After looking at more of them, I partially retain this sentiment. I don't believe I've ever personally come across a coin pusher setup that was viable to sit at and play for a prolonged period of time. These games continue to reward the patient players who choose to play during favorable circumstances. But even within this archetype of arcade games, I still feel like they are a true mixed bag. You are putting your real hard-earned money into these games, so choose carefully on which ones you decide to play.